valuable big data source, but if you don't know how to integrate it and help them integrate it, it serves as an island, and it always will.
I think it's really interesting. They'll be doing a focus group, and you can do, if you will, a focus group via social, and then you compare that. Well, and if you see discrepancies, how do you sort those out? I mean, it is social truth.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because everything you see on social is not correct, and that is more up to the stakeholder to go to what point they trust the social findings based on their extensive experience with certain products. We can only give context to what we see that they provide to us, but we can give them kind of context to what sites they're talking on. So if we see a certain level of sentiment on Reddit, we can give context to that because we understand how Reddit functions as a platform or as a site, or what our experiences with trends on Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. So us being able to provide not just context to the numbers we're seeing, but context to the places they're happening, the influencers we're used to seeing, the type of emotions we're familiar with, that really helps us give a much stronger thought leadership to social.
You use the term telemetry, and people who aren't in data might not know what that is. So talk about that data and how you're integrating that with social, what that means.
Yeah, so telemetry is an interesting interesting set of data that really it's all of the user behavior that happens behind all of our devices. So I know it might seem that this is something that's very unique. Oh, Microsoft's a tech company. We've got all these products and software licenses that you can track on. But really, a lot of this data is also very public. Well, not publicly, you still have to pay for it, but it is available to most corporations. You can purchase the health tracker data from all the bands that everybody wears, and that is a very valuable source of telemetry data that tracks where people go, what they're doing, and their habits associated with their social behavior as well. And so that is a very rich data set that for the most part is relatively quantitative in nature. And so social can provide context to why we're seeing users shift the way we are. And it's just one more layer of very complex big data that telemetry is very good, but it doesn't give you the whole picture, just like social doesn't give the whole picture of what's going on either.
Wow. So what is social insight?
I think I can give you my definition, but everybody has their own. Essentially to us is that we take whatever social data is out there and just can make it valuable to any stakeholder that's using it. And so if a stakeholder only wants to know, tell me how many more posts I got after this announcement, then that is the value to that stakeholder. But most of the time it's to answer more complex business questions, such as, what I just announced a new developer kit for Xbox. Was there any increase in discussion around Xbox after that announcement? And then part of that might also be that they show us the data related to additional signups after they make the announcement, and so you can correlate between the two. And so to them, that is the insight. Social, us just telling them there were this many more posts is not an insight. That's just us providing them a data point. And so that is something that's very difficult when you look at very unique dashboards, is how do you provide an insight on what really just amounts to a lot of data. And I actually, let's see if I can pull up this slide. Okay, there we go. So I think this is just, and these are just a few sample dashboards using Power BI, similar kind of concepts which you can use in software like Tableau. But this is a direct pipeline into our internal system that we use in the social intelligence practice. But what I'm really trying to represent here is these are very drastically different views, and everybody's seen those excessive, large network mapping that you see in the right corner. But it answered a stakeholder's question, and that's all we really needed to do to make them trust and value social more. And in that specific scenario, we were looking at our corporate ambitions, which now in the recent years are tied directly to our earnings reports. And so we tracked each individual ambition and what sites were most commonly being traced to discussions of those ambitions, which is very valuable to our senior leadership because they want to know, and their advisors want to know, is it going where we expect? Is it financial sources? Is it big social media sources? And then the left, that's just to show a way to provide a more user-friendly dashboard that allows interactive ability to see various types of governed interactions between different types of products and sites and the top influencers that appear. And so having all this data is great. You have to visualize it correctly. You have to make sure you're answering that question. And that's why our first question to any stakeholder that wants to do social analysis is, what are the questions you want answered? Because we can provide all the data you want, but it's never going to help you, and that's ultimately what we want to do.
How do they even know what questions to ask?
They're usually pretty clear about they usually have things they see in other research, or that they expect in the market, or that they're anticipating a competitor will do or doesn't do. And so a lot of it's related to something else that they saw or sparked, and our CMO will come and say, we just acquired LinkedIn, tell us what people are saying about it. And that's a more generic question. He's our CMO, so we just go with it. But I think it's interesting that it's the one true way that you can help someone out is if you push back a little bit on them to give you some kind of grounded question, so that you know what to go in and look at upwards of millions of posts. You can't just go looking for needles in a bunch of haystacks.
I was going to ask that. Well, you brought up the LinkedIn acquisition, so I'm going to ask you, so what did you tell them?
Oh, and again, so as we function as a more overarching unit, we don't roll into any brand team or product team. So we try to operate as an objective group. So we look at positive, negative, and neutral, and we present it blatantly to leadership so that they know. And we saw a good mix of everything, primarily, as is with major social intelligence, 75+% was neutral. Because you can argue the sentiment of an article title retweet till everybody's blue in the face, but most of the time they're neutral in sentiment, at least to a machine they are. And so I think if you're looking at those 20 to 25% on average of positive to negative, it's what you expect. You have your detractors, you have your supporters, and the positive supporters aligned with what leadership was expecting to get out of that announcement.
So it's interesting that they come to you with this question, and then you look back at data. Is there also in your group, are you testing and using social to test hypotheses? Is that part of what you do?
We are, and I think so. We don't do a lot of real-time work, so we don't typically look at things in the hour to 2 hour, 6 hour. We usually look at the very least the past day or so. But we do, we basically will answer any question that someone has, any hypothesis that someone has, and also we just sometimes go out and do reports on our own around things that people don't even ask about. And so we will see something, and maybe it's me waking up and deciding I want to troll around on Reddit a little bit, and I just see something really funny. Someone posts about product features they don't like on the Surface Pro 4, and so you go in and you look around, you play around in the data, and you see if anything's funny or interesting, and who knows, you might find something that can help inform the Surface engineering team about products, interest, and that's a very beneficial use case for a team that most people wouldn't really associate as being useful for social marketing.
Is there a part of this art of doing what you're doing as sort of peeling off the onion and a little Sherlock Holmes work as you're looking for meaning in this mountain of data?
Yeah, and I think that it really always comes back to making sure you know what you're looking for. A lot of social work is around the whole onion, and I think maybe you peel a layer back, maybe you peel two, but can you peel it all the way to the core and get the answer that the stakeholder is looking for? You can't always, but the questions and the constant diving and analytical interest will help you navigate your way through, and I think we have several different teams that help us do analysis, and that's important because one team will find one thing, another team will find another, they press the original team to look deeper and vice versa, and it helps everybody just get a little bit smarter and a little bit faster.
So this was to be a conversation of ROI, and how does social media intelligence affect ROI?
Yeah, so I always love getting asked the question of the ROI of social, and to me, in my experience in both consulting and at Microsoft, when it comes to ROI, it's about we view social more as an informative tool that can help inform the teams that need to use social and understand social to then have a significant return on investment, whether or not that is early warning of product defects so a team can figure out bugs ahead of time, if that is designing products in the future. So what's the Surface Pro 5, that's what they name it. What's the next iteration of features people want, and that has a direct impact that saves them millions in primary market research, gives them access to a completely organic, unfiltered, contextual understanding of the consumer. And I think, so for us, ROI is just about giving the answers the stakeholder needs for what amounts to a much cheaper cost. Like we've seen several times over the past couple of days, social is a more affordable way of doing mass research, mass understanding of a consumer. So that's what's valuable to stakeholders. We aren't a very expensive way of reaching tens of hundreds of thousands of people to get a real authentic view of, tell me how you feel about Windows 10 and having to upgrade. And otherwise you have to go out and do countless focus groups and hope that you can find the answer in some other way. So ROI, I guess, ties to whatever that business question that you answer is.
Okay, and are we talking global here?
Yes. So currently we have the ability in 6 languages. We have the capability to pull in dozens of languages, but once you start pulling it in, you have to have a way to actually analyze it. So we can quantify the data, but going to that thematic, qualitative level, that requires us to build out that governed world I was talking about. And to do that, we have to build locally sourced queries and structure that really ties to, okay, how do people in Portugal talk on social media versus how do people in Brazil, speaking the same language, talk about Microsoft products. So we have to create that world so that we can go beyond volume and general sentiment numbers and really get at the meat of what people are talking about. But it has endless applications. Once you do that, you can inform field sales team on any continent about what their local market is saying at any given time.
Okay, I do want to open it up for questions. If you have questions, I know we're running on. If you want. So, oh yes, excellent. Okay, so.